right? We've become so divided, and you have your opinion, I have mine, and I just kind of felt like if you could put yourself in the shoes of someone else, it might make a difference in, not necessarily trying to change someone's perspective, but to understand where they come from and why. I kind of have felt over the past couple of years, we've lost that. We've lost sight of where everyone is coming from.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Creative Cast. I am your host, Tammy Munson. I am so glad that you guys are here with me. This is Thanksgiving week, so happy Thanksgiving. It is already crazy here, and it's only Monday. But I am so ready for it. I am here for all of it. So with it being Thanksgiving week, I just want to say I am thankful for each and every one of you, all of you that have listened, whether this is the first episode that you're listening to, or you've listened to all 31 episodes, or you're somewhere in between. Thank you so much for being a part of this community, for listening, and just being the awesome podcasters that you are. I have to say, I feel so very blessed. We have so much to be thankful for. 2020 and 2021 were just doozies. It feels like it's been the longest 2 years ever. And I know I'm not the only one, and I know we're all ready for an amazing 2022. But we've got a few more weeks of the year, and I am so grateful for everything, for our family, for our health, specifically the diagnosis for me and dealing with the post-COVID stuff, and lots more. All of my clients, God is so good, so good. I want to also know what you guys are thankful for. So either shoot me an email at hello@tammymunsoncreative.com or leave it on Instagram. Send me a DM. I would love to hear from you guys and to know what you guys are thankful for this Thanksgiving. Now, y'all, I am super excited about this. My friend and kindred spirit, Nicole Davison, is on the show with me this week. And I know you guys are going to absolutely love her as much as I do. Now, Nicole is the host of the podcast Unpacking Perspectives, as well as the founder of NMD Career Consulting, which is a private career counseling and consulting practice that she has managed for over 5 years. She is a board-certified career coach and counselor, a mom, a law enforcement wife, a motherless daughter, and a parentless parent. These are all the roles that have shaped her into who she is today. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Nicole.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, ever since we launched your podcast. And I definitely want to get into your podcast and Unpacking Perspectives, which is the name of the podcast. But it's Thanksgiving week. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, it's been a doozy of a year. So what are you thankful for this year?
Oh, gosh. It's funny. What am I thankful for this year? I still kind of feel like we're in the thick of so much. But honestly, thinking about Thanksgiving, I am definitely thankful for a little bit more normalcy, a little bit more. I keep saying we're getting there. We are. I hope so. I don't know. We're in Connecticut. We're in Connecticut. I will say this. This is going to be the first time in 2 years that we are spending Thanksgiving with our family. And I am so thankful for that. I may not be thankful for the drive to New Jersey, but once we get there, I'm thankful.
It does. And how long of a drive is that for you?
So on a good day, it should take about 2.5 hours, which is not bad at all.
That's not too bad. Like I said, this has been a doozy of a year. For me personally, it's been an excursion to hell and back. But I'm very, very thankful. The health is better, and Just so much to be thankful for this year with everything going on in the world, you know?
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
is nuts. So yeah, super excited to have you here. So let's talk a little bit about the podcast.
Okay.
Kind of tell everybody what your podcast is about, all the good stuff about it.
Well, it's really been an amazing journey since I started, and we're pretty early on in the podcast. We've only
Yeah.
had now 7 episodes, and as you know, this really came from COVID. Honestly, when everything happened, when the world just started shutting down, I learned more about podcasts. I learned more about, and I'll be honest, I had friends that would always say, oh, you should listen to this podcast. And I really didn't listen to podcasts that much before COVID because my job did not have a long commute. I didn't have many opportunities to sit and listen to something by myself, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
And so once I started exploring podcasts, as I literally would walk in circles through my cul-de-sac, I realized I love this. I love being able to search topics and, just listen to other people's voices. But as I started seeking out what I was looking for, I started finding that I couldn't find it. And, for me, I kind of feel like I'm a unicorn just with my background. Obviously I'm a career counselor. I'm a career coach. I love working with clients and helping them with their career path. But there are so many other pieces of who I am and the voices that I look for. I realized I might be able to be that person when I started to research everything. So as far as the podcast, it's called Unpacking Perspectives. And that's exactly it. It's the perspectives from so many different facets of our lives. And when I mentioned COVID, it was also the climate of our country. When I started thinking about this, I just felt like no one listens to anyone anymore. And we've become so divided and, you have your opinion, I have mine. And I just kind of felt like if you could put yourself in the shoes of someone else, it might make a difference in, not necessarily trying to change someone's perspective, but to understand where they come from and why. And I kind of have felt over the past couple of years, we've lost that. We've lost sight of where everyone is coming from.
It's so true. And that's what I love. Like when you told me about what you were thinking as far as the topic, I mean, I instantly fell in love with the idea of that because, I mean, it's so hard to have a conversation now, especially if it's people of different opinions because, well, that's my opinion and they're going to, die on the hill. But we need to try and put ourselves in other people's situations, other people's life experience, and we've somehow forgotten how to do that. And that's what I love that you're doing, and you're sharing those stories because our stories matter. Our stories are so important, and we can learn so much from other people, depending on what the season that we're in, by listening to someone else's story,
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's not to cut you, but that's something that it was big for me during COVID because I recognized that everyone is at a very different comfort level, whether it's going through COVID, whether it's the vaccine, whether it's the masks, wherever you are in the country, it's different. It's different everywhere. Right. And I started to feel that you couldn't have a conversation anymore because if you had a different opinion, you were wrong. And that's kind of where it came from, where, we live in the most incredible country that promotes freedom, that, we are a free country to think for ourselves. And I started feeling, and I think it was the timing of everything. It was the timing of COVID, the timing of the political, the divisiveness politically, what was going on with the election. And I just felt like nobody was willing to listen to understand. They were only, if they were listening to change someone else's mind. And that's not, I just really struggled with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the majority of people right now, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, I mean, this is not a political discussion in any way.
No.
Because I find it even people of the same political persuasion have difference of opinions with different things.
Yes.
When we have these conversations, we're not really listening to the words that the person is saying. We're waiting for that opportunity to interject our thoughts and to convince them my way of thinking is better than your way of thinking because your way of thinking is flawed. So let me change that for you, you know. And I love the story, just like listening to your story about your mom and your dad. That was phenomenal. Just the stories that are coming from the podcast are just absolutely amazing, and
Thank
I
you.
I think it's fabulous. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's
yeah,
exactly it, right? It's the stories.
the
It's,
stories.
you know, and I'll often say you could be standing online at the grocery store in front of someone or behind someone, and they could be struggling with something, and you might be in a rush and, think, gosh, what's their problem? You don't know what they've been through. And that's kind of where this comes from, because anyone could look at me and just assume that they have it all figured out, where I come from, what my struggles are, but they do not know my story. And, as you've said, everyone has a story. When you give someone an opportunity to tell it, you can learn so much. And, and it's funny because when I think about something you just said before really resonated, that people are so quick to answer what, like someone's talking, and instead of really listening to understand, you're just so quick to answer them because
Mm-hmm.
their thought might be flawed. Well, I never really thought of it this way, but my career started in sales, and I went through, crazy sales training, incredible sales training in my first job out of college. And then
Mm-hmm.
many years later, I went back to get my master's in counseling. And, something that I learned through the course of my career, really that 80-20, just sitting
Yes.
back and listening, not to listen to answer, but to truly take space with someone and listen to them. And
Mm-hmm.
I do feel that there are so many out there that are not, they're just not doing that. And if we were able to stop and do that, what a difference it could make in our interactions with people.
Absolutely. I am 100%. I already think that you and I are kindred spirits anyway. I love that, so many people started podcasts in last year, this year, whatever, because of COVID. Everybody was home. They wanted something to do. Hey, let's start a podcast. But I really liked where yours started. You kind of knew where you wanted to go from the beginning. So let's talk about your journey as a podcaster. So going back to kind of the beginning, what do you think your biggest obstacle was in starting the podcast?
I would think probably the technical stuff, and I think that's something that I struggle with everything, right? I know what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I know who I want to interview. I love the interview process, but
Mm-hmm.
it was more the technical stuff. It was the,
Yeah.
getting everything in order, even something as little as where to record, right? I've learned
Right.
so much that, if you, because I don't have a studio, I'm literally doing it from home, and,
Right. Yeah.
the landscapers outside mowing the lawns, and it's just the noise or the cat. And I don't know if you can hear right now, but I have a bunny upstairs. I don't know if you can hear the banging,
No.
but I
No.
literally have a bunny that lives in our dining room I'm hearing her chewing on cardboard right above my head. So I
That's
don't know if you
funny.
can hear that. So yeah,
No.
that's
No.
probably, that's probably the biggest obstacles that I had. I mean, thank goodness I had you, and I still have you, because you are
Yes.
literally my person, and
Oh.
I couldn't have done it without you,
Oh,
because
thank you so
it's
much. That means the
yeah.
world to me. And that's the thing that stops, I think, a lot of people is that tech side of it. Like for me, it comes naturally. That's why I do what I do, and I love doing it. I consider myself very lucky that I get to do this because I learn all kinds of things. But the tech side of it can be very intimidating and quite overwhelming for some people. So they'll get started, and then before they know it, they're off into pod fade land, where they just stop doing episodes because they're like, this is too much. I can't handle it. Whether you're going to hire a person or not, it might be advantageous for you to go on Google. Google is your friend. If you can't afford to
Mhm.
hire someone, Google is definitely your friend, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, generationally, I have my interns, and they are so technically savvy, so much more than me. And there are definitely people out there that are able to do it on their own. That is not me. That is absolutely not me. And again, I think it depends on your audience. It depends on what you're doing. I mean, we've gotten so many compliments already from people that are in this space that said, wow, it's whatever you're doing, it sounds amazing. Just the technical amazing. And I take zero credit for that. Maybe locking my cats out on the porch for a certain period of time. But for the most part, again, it's kind of like when you buy a house and, you have heat, but you don't really know how you get the heat until you realize that you're out of oil and then you're like, oh, wait,
that's how that happens.
Yeah, that's how that happens. And, and just now listening, because I now have my library of podcasts that I love and I look forward to listening to them every week,
right.
Different artists and different, podcasters. And I have such an appreciation for everything, for those that do it.
It's not as easy as hit and record, right?
No, it's not. And, and there are some that try to make it as easy as hitting record, and you realize just the quality and everything. And it's just, it's a lot of work. It really is, but it's amazing.
It is a lot of work. And you just hit 500 downloads on 7 episodes. That's amazing.
Is that amazing? Because I don't know. And I Google it. And of course, Google is my friend, but I said, is that good? I don't know. Is that good? So it makes me feel good because it does get addicting to look in Buzzsprout to see how many downloads. So
yes.
Thank you.
The caveat to the downloads though, and believe me, I'm there too. We just don't want to get like super crazy about the numbers because, just don't.
Yeah. Well, and I've learned too, and that's something that there are many in my world that podcasting is new, where listening to a podcast is new. And, because they know that I started one, they're like, oh, I need to listen to it. And that's one of the beauties of of being able to listen to a podcast. There's no rush. So, you can start it. I mean, and once it's out there, it's out there. And that's something I love about it, because I have some where life gets busy. You're not able to go on them, but then you could, I don't want to say binge them, but you can if you really want to.
Yeah. There's things that I might be looking up if I'm looking for a particular statistic for something or a particular metric or just information I want to know, like my recent diagnosis. There's a lot of information I want to know about. So that's the first place I go. Who's got a podcast on any of this stuff? What can they share with me? It's like this wealth of information right at your fingertips that you can listen to if I'm walking the dog or I'm sitting on my sofa, just like waiting for my kids or something like that, that I could just sit, pop in those earbuds, and it's just so much information.
Absolutely. And, it's funny you say that, because I know for me, when I'm looking, and this is part of why I wanted to bring on guests with these different topics. Because when I look for podcasts, I look for inspiration, parenting, mother loss, law enforcement. I mean, there's certain things that I want someone that it's almost like I'm having a conversation with them. And that's cool. It really is. I think for anyone considering a podcast, recognizing, yes, there are so many out there, but we all have different needs. There are so many things that we're looking for. And that's something I love about it. I listen to the radio sometimes, and it's kind of like when we were growing up and the song would come on the radio, you had to record it. And if it played, you couldn't play. People don't understand that was a true struggle. And, it's kind of the same thing now. If you hear something on the radio and you're like, oh, I missed that. But with a podcast, no, you can rewind it. It's wonderful.
And you can listen to it 3 o'clock in the morning if you want to, if you're an insomniac like me right now and you can't sleep and you're like, well, I'm just going to pop in a thing and find something that, is going to make me chill and relax. And I love the whole medium. Obviously, I'm an editor and a producer, but I think it's just amazing the way that it has grown over the last few years and what it's now become.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. So I want to go back for a second. If you could go back to the beginning of your podcast journey, like when you started researching and looking, is there anything that you would change about that? Is there anything that you would do or not do?
Probably for me, I wouldn't say there's anything I would change, because this truly has been a learning experience for me. And I'm glad that I'm going through it. There's definitely been, some moments of clarity where I'm like, oh, I should have done it this way or that way. But overall, and you're going to laugh when I say this because you know where I'm going. I wish that I developed a bit my pipeline. I think just going through this process of the timeline of getting your podcast in and, making sure you have show notes and everything else. Of course, I have an incredible intern that has helped us with that. Shout out to Caroline. But I think just having a more full pipeline rather than, and now I'm there. Now I'm in a better place. I have a bunch of podcasts already recorded and ready to go. But I think there are definitely times that I'm like, oh, because life happens, right? I mean, I have my coaching practice. I'm a mom.
And you ran for elective office during this
yeah.
time too, right?
Oh my gosh, that could be a whole other podcast, which I know I'll have it. If you want to talk about it, I'm all in. But yeah, I mean, I kind of lost my life for 3 months, and that was the whole time. That literally during the time that the podcast launched to now is this exact same time of running for town council and everything else. So yeah. I think I kind of went through everything all at once, and now I can kind of take a step back and take a breath and talk about gratitude. I mean, I am thankful to be where I am right now. So yeah, I think that's probably the big thing. If I could go back, I probably would have had a little bit bigger of a pipeline already done so that I wasn't every week being like, oh my God, we need to do this. So does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's the important thing, because hitting record, like I said, is the easiest part of this. It's, if you're going to have a guest, who you're going to have. You got to coordinate that. If you're not going to have a guest, what are you going to talk about on your show? All the things that need to happen, the actual part of the recording, sending the recording, listening to the first draft. Is there any edits that need to be made? And then sending it back, and then writing the show notes and getting everything uploaded and creating the social media. It all takes work. Yeah. Especially if you have a week, you have a every 2 week show.
Yeah.
You throw in a weekly show. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's fun. I have a great time doing it. I absolutely love being a host as well as being a producer. But, I think so many people get into this and go, oh, this is really work. I really have to have all my ducks in a row before I really get into this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting because I know with some of my guests, they canceled at the last minute because of health issues. And, I have one that is about to come on, which, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about him. He's my childhood friend. He's a fireman in New York City. And he's a lieutenant now. But, again, his schedule was crazy. So just to get the time that the two of us could have our recording together, that's challenging. So,
it is.
Things like that, like you said, hitting record is the easy part, but coordinating your guests, coordinating what you want to talk about. And, it's a lot of work. It's so rewarding. I have my own timeline initiatives that I've been wanting to focus on over the course of a calendar year based on my life. And, there's some things, I know for me, just my parents' anniversaries of losing them, that was a big thing. So that was something that I really wanted to talk about, which I think I was able to honor.
Episode. It really, really was. Thank you. And I really love the analogy. I think it was on the bus or on the train.
Yes, the subway story.
The subway story. Yes. I don't remember what episode it is, but you guys have got to go and listen to this. I'll make sure to put it in the show notes because it was a phenomenal episode. It really was.
Thank you. And that was actually, I think, one of my shorter ones. So,
yeah, I don't think it was the full 30, 40 minutes. I think it was probably maybe under 20.
I think it was. And it's funny because I think that story will repeat in different ways throughout the course of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so amazing. And that actually is going to be, not to give you like a cliffhanger, but there are other parts of that are going to come into play in my life, even over the next few months, that I am just, it's funny. Like if I could just talk to Stephen Covey, it would be amazing, just to think about what an impact that one story has had on so much of my life. And, and again, everyone has their story, and, that's the timelines are important to me with this podcast. And that's something that anyone that listens to it, that will listen to it, they'll understand that based on my story, the experiences that I've had in my life really motivated me and was the reason that probably caused me to do this more than anything. So
I love it. Or if you could give a piece of advice to someone who's just starting out, what would that be?
Patience with yourself.
Yeah.
Patience, and you've taught me that too. But, I think obviously that, and if you truly have it in your heart, do it. But take the time to really think about what it involves, but yeah, I would say really though, just the patience, being patient with yourself and, marathon training, like, it's funny. I go back to the heart of my own life. And when you're training for a marathon, you don't just get up and run the race. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of months and hard work and training and preparation that go into it. And, like once you get to race day, that's to me the celebration of all the hard work that you did. So, there's a
Right.
lot that goes into this, a lot. And it is so rewarding and so worth it. And, you don't always have the same results. Like you've taught me that. I mean, oh, and no, I want to change it. Actually, I have a better one.
Okay.
Don't compare your beginning to someone else's end, right? Did you say that to me? I love that. Oh,
Yes.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I will,
Don't compare your chapter 1 to their chapter 36.
I love, love, love that because, I mean, obviously there's like Allie Worthington. I mean, she's amazing. And I look at her results and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be that person, but again, like it's just everybody
285 or something. Something
exactly
crazy like that.
Well, and if anything, you can see the hard work of, those that went before us and that are going before us. And you can have that appreciation because it's not a competition. It's, we're all sharing this space together. And it's been amazing. I mean, I'm learning, and just the people I'm meeting just through Instagram and different things. It really is an amazing world that, hey, 3 years ago, if you would have told me I was going to be doing this, I probably would be like, what? What's a podcast? So I don't, it's just like, it was not on my radar. So, you do have to follow your heart, but that's probably the best advice that you gave me, not to compare your chapter 1 to someone else's.
Yeah. I mean, it's so, imposter syndrome just sets in and then you're like, well, somebody already has a podcast like that. I can't do a podcast like that. And you go, well, yeah, because you bring something different to the table that nobody else is going to have. You may be talking about very similar topics, but your life experience is going to make it unique and different. And I mean, of course, there's other things that you can do to make it unique and different. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, if your podcast and if there's another one that's similar to that, it's going to be drastically different because you're drastically different individuals. You're not trying to be like that other person. So,
absolutely.
And you can only be you. You can only be you.
Yeah. You told me that months ago. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this conversation, but we were on Zoom and I was feeling very overwhelmed and I was probably feeling like an imposter syndrome, which is kind of funny because I do have a great background. I mean, I don't usually give myself props, but I'm proud of where I am in my life with my career. But I remember being like, can I do this? And he just look at me and he goes, and I go, am I meant for this? And it's something like that. And he would just look at me and go, yes, you are meant to do this. And I was like, okay, it's because it is,
it's your calling.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have our unique calling. And I believe that, my calling is to help people do this.
Yeah.
That's mine. I mean, I'm also a podcaster as well, but part of my podcast is to help people do this that can't afford to work with an editor or a producer or anything like that, or they want to do it on their own. They don't want help from anybody else, which is fine. Totally okay. But to help them get to the point where they can feel confident what they're doing. That's what God has called me to do in my lifetime is right now this. It was mama to 2 girls, raised them. Now this is what I'm meant to do. So
yeah,
it's a fun gig. It really is a fun gig. Nicole, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. Where can everybody go to find about you, what you do, your podcast, all the things?
Oh my gosh, all the things. I have lots of things. So obviously I have my private practice, which is nmdcareers.com. So I have a website that has all the things on it. You can also follow me on Instagram at nmdcareers, as well as at Unpacking Perspectives. So I have my podcast Instagram page, my company Instagram page. I'm on Facebook. So if you just look up Unpacking Perspectives, if you look up NMD Careers, you can find me there too. So,
well, fantastic, friend. And I will make sure to put all those links in the show notes for everybody. So if you missed it on the audio, It'll be in the show notes over on TammyMunsonCreative.com. And thank you again for agreeing to come on here with me today. This has been fun.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I appreciate it.
Oh, I just love our chat. So good. Now, I know this is going to be, feels like the longest week, so much to do, lots of family time, but I wanted to let you guys know next week, it's about time for another informational roundup here on the Creative Cast. Now, this is going to probably be a long one, so I just wanted to prepare you for that. Make sure to bring your pen and your favorite notebook when you're listening to that episode, because I've got updates on Apple and Buzzsprout and a podcast conference announcement, even podcast gift ideas. So you definitely do not want to miss that one. Now, ladies, as always, I believe in each and every one of you. Y'all are my heroes. I believe that inexperience and production fatigue and intimidating tech should not hold you back from accomplishing your goals or your dreams. So why don't we walk through this journey together, hand in hand, side by side, so that you can spend less time worrying about the details and the overwhelm and all the things, and more time spreading your message and God's word. I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a blessed, happy Thanksgiving week. And I will talk to you guys next Monday. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Bye.